Well, Rob, if we'd have been on a couple of years ago, I imagine the GM debate would have been one that would have we probably would have had to grapple with day in, day out. Indeed, it was a debate that did for a period seem to seize the national consciousness. I'm not convinced that we had a lot of the questions that were asked at that time answered. However, it would certainly appear that GM foods, crops, especially canola, now are part and parcel of everyday farming in large parts of Australia, apart from South Australia, of course, that we have talked about. The debate's died down. I suspect not from Janet Grogan, our next guest from GM Free Consumers Network. But I just wonder, Janet, does it feel as though the war is almost lost?
Oh, absolutely not. No, far from it. No, we're just gearing up for the next stage.
Well, which just seems remarkable. Now, as I say to Rob, that it was a debate that did rage, and it had a lot of people very hot and heavy. However, it seems to have now, after the moratorium was lifted in the east of the country with New South Wales and Victoria, that was almost like the floodgates opening. Western Australia now, they've been producing GM canola crops for less than a year, yet make up 50% of the national average. That's got to be concerning to you.
It is very concerning, but, after all, WA is the biggest grower of canola anyway, so we were expecting a big uptake.
Sure.
But, over 300 farmers, that's big. It still represents just 8% of the plantings, so, it's not sort of going to take over at any moment now. But interestingly enough, 1/4 of that is being grown by just 4 farmers, which is very strange indeed. Yeah. So I think we can say about 52,000 hectares are being grown by, the majority of farmers, with these 4 particular farmers growing 1/4 of the whole amount.
Janet, with the with your particular organisation and the group there, is the opposition based on the uncertainty, on an uncertainty to do with food safety?
Right. Well, certainly it is about food safety. What we've always been very aware of as a group is this whole thing that we're often being accused as being emotional. It's not an emotional issue. We're very much about science, getting the facts out there, and to be quite honest, when it comes to health and safety, and as a consumers group, that's what we're really concerned about, whether this is safe. The facts are not there. Now, when we had the disallowance debate in March, a very interesting point was made by Liberal MLA Peter Abetz, because he said he was also concerned about the health and safety of the food, so he looked and couldn't find documents, thought he was looking in the wrong place, so he approached head scientist from Food Standards Australia New Zealand, Dr. Paul Brent, and said to him, look, I'm looking in the wrong place, where's the toxicology reports to show that this food is safe? And he was told there aren't any. So when you look at the facts, there aren't any. On the other hand, people say, well, they've been eating it for, the last decade and there's nothing wrong. But once again, there aren't any studies to show that this is being looked at, that it is safe. On the other hand, there were quite a lot of independent studies that have come to light that show that we should be concerned. So that's where we are sitting at the moment. We're a consumers group, and we are still very much concerned about the health and safety of this product.
Yeah, look, I suppose I declare that I've been a supporter of GM technology, but the way ahead.
I'm not opposed to GM technology.
No.
We're not Luddites. We're not living in the past. We're not saying we don't like research or anything. All we want to know is this food safe or not? Peter Abetz said no. It's there are no toxicology reports. He actually reflected the exact words that Kim Chance, I'm sure you're familiar with Kim,
yes,
lovely man, very intelligent. He also was of the same mind, wasn't opposed to GM technology, but is it safe? Couldn't find any studies. He examined 137 in detail, couldn't find any toxicology evidence there to show that it was safe, and that's why he put WA government money into the feeding trials. That was 5 years ago. We're still waiting for the results, but it's all about the science, and as far as we're concerned, the science is not there to show that this is safe.
Yeah, I'm glad that you are concentrating on the science, because I think that no one was well served by where the debate went, probably back in about 2000, 2001, where there was a lot of confusion out there. The difference between GM and non-GM. And organic and organic farming was not particularly well understood, and unfortunately, a lot of the debate it was a very frustrating debate because the science was getting shoved aside, and emotion tended to take over the debate for quite a while. And certainly that was the case in Europe too. Like in the late 1990s, there was enormous confusion over there, and the science sort of got shoved aside, but. I've got no problem debating this one scientifically at any time. I think that's where the debate needs to be, and it needs to be a sensible debate. And and we need to know our food supplies are safe.
Yeah, and of course it's all about choice, regardless of whether it's safe or not. People should have a choice. And the way that the labelling goes at the moment, we know the majority of foods that include GM ingredients are not labelled. They do say, well, it's because there's no GM DNA content in it. Well, that recent report in January this year actually showed that if you test it, you can actually detect GM DNA. Also showed up in Pazan's own reports when they studied it several years ago. So it is detectable. It should be labelled, but at the moment, of course, it's not. So, we don't have that choice. And from a consumer's point of view, we think we should have that choice, which is why we're so pleased that the federal government have started the labelling review. It's already reached its second stage now, and the first stage received over 6,000 responses from the public. Wow. So clearly labelling is very much a public issue, and a lot of those were concerning GM labelling as well.
Yeah, labelling is a huge issue, and the more information we can fit on those panels, the better.
Absolutely right.
Including actually where it's grown.
If they can tell us, it's 100% fat-free or whatever, details like that, I think it should not be beyond their means to say, GM canola or cornstarch or whatever. It happened in Europe. It didn't cost them any more to do it there, and they've been labelling that way for 10 years. In fact, they recently introduced a labelling for animal products, which is, something else that the public have been asking for. Does the milk come from a cow that's been fed GM, or do those eggs come from a chicken that's been fed GM? That's being slowly introduced into Europe as well. We're so far behind them, but hopefully from this labelling review we'll be catching up, so at least we can have a choice when we go to buy things in the supermarket.